Azam Zamski Ud Asi Luth Gazaso Lu Luzogos Zebum are the other way of pronouncing the seasonal chant. Azam Zilmske Av Ase Loth Gazaso La Lazagazav Zebum. Wednesday, August 6th at 10:57 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time is the cross quarter. So the nearest sunset is going to be the start of Lughnasadh, or what used to be called fall. Now, Aussie is the word for late afternoon, the last half of the afternoon. Zomksi is the word for hate. Zipvum is the word for time. Is also is the word for cup. The word for what calls itself a goddess among the spiritual beings is Lughnasadh. And I do not quite know at the moment or don't remember Huzum, Uv, and Lu. So we look at these as numbers: 0, ah, 1, la, 2, ga, 3, eh, or e. It's whenever you see an I in the text. 4, or u. 5, ra. 6, 7, va. 8, ta. 9, 10, 50, ba. 100, 500, eh, or in the other dialect, it's e. So whenever you have the letter e there, 1,000, fa. 10,000, wa, or we have that as the W when you see it in the text, because between O, U, and V, there gets some confusion. 100,000 is A or O, so that's the letter O. Ya is a million, a billion, da, a trillion, za. A fraction is indicated by a sa, so if there, so the cha in between, so this letter C, you have the cha pronunciation whenever you see that, times whatever by 9, and you get that you have pa. 7 times pa, 3 times, 5 times is a ka, 2 times is a ja, and just going to leave that for now. And certain verses of correspondence for us to consider here. We'll go over them, but from the Quran, we're going to have 14 43, 28, 10, 52, 35, and is that 54 or is that 74, 4? Oh, well, we'll verify that when we get to it. We'll know by theme. From tonic, we have Genesis 1, 2, Deuteronomy 32, 10, Job 6, 18, 12, 24, and 26, 7, Psalm 107, 40, Isaiah 24, 10, 29, 2, um, okay, 40, 17, 40, 23, 41, 29, 44, 9, 45, 1, 45, 19, 49, 4, and 59, 4. I'm going to have to look at the higher quality picture for this when we actually find the verses. Jeremiah 44, 23, Matthew, and from Biblia, Matthew 7, 23, 9, 33, 21, 16, 21, 42, 26, 33, Luke 15, 29, John 7, 46, Acts 10, 14, 11, 8, 14, 8, 1 Corinthians 13, 8, Hebrews 10, 1, 8 and 11. Oh, and 8 and 11. And so we'll draw from that. We don't have any specific listing for Hindu scriptures with this one. And so you can add or pull out whatever response that you want from these things. You know, these are very energetic selections of verses that you can draw from how other people relate to them. Regarding the fall quarter, which of course starts with this night, we have, hemp twine. We have a seal of Solomon, as it's called, but really it's David who had the six-pointed star on his. Well, I mean, okay, yeah. So David had the 5-point, and Solomon had the six-pointed star. And you can tell it's Middle Ages. It's not ancient Hebrew or anything like that. The tau in the center of the cube of space, that makes enough sense. Tetragrammaton, alpha and omega, so the ends of the Greek alphabet, the little cross marks of the thing. It just doesn't kind of sodalite is seen as a symbol of calm and balance and authenticity. That's connected to a silver chain. And so we have, it's basically two four-sided figures attached in a way that turns it into a 18-sided thing. So 6 plus 6 plus 6 is what you end up with. You have a mood ring that changes color, and you can actually practice certain meditative techniques to do that. Now, somebody said that the little snap cases from vending machines look like cups. And well, I guess they're not cups, but I consider it as a representation of the vessel. So the vessel and the sheaths being the the well, in a way, our body has around it. So you can think of that and the different layers of our body related by the different things there. Because we're not the body. Did I mention, the sparkly wand at top? It's appropriate enough. I know people say, "Oh, it's cheesy. It's a child's thing." It's like, Yeah, you can use anything. You don't have to use some expensive wand. Um, my approximately eight-sided stone that is representative of the whole fact that I do seasonals, orange quartz, it's symbolic of releasing or responding to negative energies. Part of the reason why I choose it is because sometimes I see myself as uh, just call it an orange alien, and yeah, I know I'm incarnated as a human and that sort of stuff, but I don't think of it, you know, in the sort of star seed sort of way. I was, I'm not displaced. I'm not, whatever. It's just I'm not this body. So, there's a being that inhabits and controls this body. Um, and that's what, I've seen myself as at times. But it's a symbol of creativity and all that sort of stuff. Now, there's the symbolic blood and flesh that we end the seasonal rituals with, and then whoever's there would continue in sharing what's going on. Now, I think Isaiah 29:2, 24:11, oh, oh, 2, 1, and 30, 34:11. Oh, it's 29:21. Okay. My handwriting. 40:17, 40:23, 41:29, 44:9. Okay. I think that's all I had trouble reading with, but the poem collected from a few books, the Satanic Kirgama, From Satan to Ahriman, is that the name of the one? And the Abyssal Bible is what I'm bouncing off of here. It's usually my yogic time of year, so I'm keeping it into that theme of the right hand path. And by right hand path and left hand path, I don't mean the right hand of God and the left hand of God. I mean, it has been planned for the play of this henge, swimming, swinging, and climbing in the jungle and on the coast is brought within this henge, thickening and deepening the hardship and bliss of drought and flood pour forth from this henge. Entwining, we draw down more than can be sought, irrepressibly everything and yet not. It's transforming and manifesting beyond gendering are what can be taught to get beyond what they were thinking. We do, we fought and filled voids, hail ourselves and the predecessors. Changing will take time, but there will be internal and external replacers, more than just group practitioners. We are individuals with our own sense of ritual. We are not immortal, but set the mood and selections to direct the practical. Ours is the decision beyond obligation, our mere symbol of goddess, god, or devils. The abnormal and darkness are nurtured beyond thrills. The carnal profession causes doubt as to what is revealed, identical to what is in possession. The commune with the sinful. Rationally, we reject all that is false in our exaltation as eternal entities. We're led by all forms and names to the inner circle. Expel by your power towards union with more than your nature. Continual self-remission is the return and transcendence of the pre-existence character. Descent has begun beyond the false egos of guilt, shame and fear, ascent becomes possible in the devoiding reflectors. Revels are developments for the abysmal core, the dreamscapes of the vast dark deep will be after as it was before. Disgraceful is not to be receptive, sovereign, and an aligner. Liminal shadows show their increasing as we approach the hour. We view beyond the mortal as non-specific invokers. Indistinguishable beings clamor for their chance. For the source and return we dedicate this trance. We find liberation in understanding how the forces dance. Beyond the confines of supposition, shadows are as light. The vapors of the forgotten make us messengers towards the night. Meaning comes in to grant us power. Instantly, there is a transfer to many potential opportunities. So open the door. It is not just of benefit, but our spiritual war. And if you feel like breaking into speaking in tongues or anything like that, obviously feel free. And in the actual ritual itself, I will be using the Aramaic, the Greek, and the Arabic of what I'm referencing here. 1443. And they would hasten forward, heads lifted upwards, gazes fixed, and emptied out their hearts. "2810. The mother of Moses was perturbed in the morning. Had we not strengthened her heart to remain a believer, she had almost given him away." 5235. Were they created of themselves, or are they the creator? 84:4. And throws out whatever it contains and is empty. Okay, so we do have some definite themes of direction, of personal upliftment, of void, of a vessel that draws in, certainly in the symbolic sense, and not giving up and going forward. Genesis 1:2. The earth being unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep, and a wind from divinity sweeping over the water. So Tahu and Bahu are the words we're using. So sort of chaos and void at the same time. So obviously that's going to be our theme from Tonic that we are throwing in. And I'm guessing the Quranic terms also include meaning of void. Deuteronomy 32:10. He found him in a desert region, in an empty, howling waste. He engirded him, watched over him, guarded him as the pupil of his eye. Now, for some of us, this time of year is particularly a time of drought. Sometimes it's particularly a time of flood. It's the hottest time of year, so that's why red is particularly a color, right? Um, and we have some symbolism that can be drawn from the sigil of the season there. Um, you can think of birds and cats, right? Um, Particularly like owls and stuff. Um, so maybe cat, snake, well, a wildcat, a snake, and oh, what other thing am I thinking of that maybe the pitchfork can represent? Bird, yeah, yeah. So bird, cat, snake. Okay, I did get the right combination. So as I pointed out, those can serve as models for us. Um, if you can't do your ritual outside alone, do what you can. Maybe if you have a regular spot, then that spot is something that you mentally connect to during the course of the ritual. Now, the book of Job can be very interesting at times because it's um, well, as you may know, the book of Job has most of the mentions of Satan in tonic. And but this is not what we're referencing here, and we can't we could say the same verses and do the same thing over and over again, but I find it more fruitive to work out a new seasonal, and that's why it comes out a bit sloppy, particularly when I do things on my own. But please excuse that, and feel free to comment about what you have to say about any particular line or verse. Um, Agree or disagree, and um, we can do that without, you know, Job 6:18, their course twists and turns, they run into the desert and perish. Well, when you go out into the wilderness, you do need to be prepared. Nowadays, because of a bear in the neighborhood, I'm bringing my stun light and probably gonna be armed if I'm out in the woods because I'll have more of a chance, right? 12:24, he deranges the leaders of the people and makes them wander in a trackless waste. So people made to be, again, what they're not ready for or what isn't their purpose. So before you wander off and be alone and all that other stuff, figure out if it is your purpose. 26:7, he who stretched out Zaphon over chaos, who suspended earth over emptiness. Well, because everything occupies a space that would be, it occupied that space for a particular reason. And the word here, there's okay, TZPWN. Oh, I've talked about that word in relation to the Goetia. Um, Used for the heavens, but we're referring to the north. In my country, the main prayer direction for Bible followers and Quran followers is on the north half of the sky, pretty much wherever you are. So, there's that to consider. I think maybe in Alaska you might point southwest. Um, Maybe not. It depends on it's the shape of the earth and which direction's closer, right? Okay, we have Psalm 107:40. He pours contempt on great men and makes them lose their way in trackless deserts. That sounds like one of those goetic powers that you hear about, right? Um, but it just all depends on who's doing it, right? And the context. So not let's not moralize mere, oh, it's negative or positive, and that's what I mean by these new agers are kind of toxic. Yeah, there are problems in some of these mainstream faiths or all the conservative paths or whatever, but you know, Isaiah 24:10, towns are broken, empty, every house is shut, none enters. In the Quran, there's this verse regarding the end times about how no city or town is going to be left undestroyed except those which are going to be afflicted, right? And so that's what that reminds me of. 29:21, and a lot of these selections make more sense regarding the actual language there. Who cause people to lose their lawsuits, laying a snare for the arbiter at the gate, and wronging by falsehood him who is in the right. Yeah, you can't look at the judgment of the courts and say, oh, they deserve what's ever going to come to them and all that other stuff. Isaiah 34:11. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Night and day. Oh, that's near. Oh, yeah, no, it is. Jackdaws and owls shall possess it. Great owls and ravens shall dwell there. He shall measure it with the line of chaos and with weights of emptiness. So this is some lower sphere of the kliput going on here, right? I know we don't have the word elite and we don't have nama and stuff, but this is definitely along that line. So you may want to write that one down for your personal references if you're going to do operations like that. 40:23, he brings potentates to naught, makes rulers of the earth as nothing. And we already go over the idea that the ranks of the world, what the mere world decides is, you know, honor and dignity. That gets undone. 40:23. Did 40:23. 40:17. All nations are as naught in his sight. He accounts them as less than nothing. Oh, it's not nations. That's a misleading idea. Hagwim is the ones who turn their backs. Guya is a single for turning their back on God. So it's not just some ethnic dispute. Because honestly, I would probably not include verses like that in my rituals if I thought it was just that, unless I was, you know, posting things against each other, and but not in this context. It's about the personal connecting to the void and the void entities and um or well being there, being present. uh did I say 41:29? See, they are all nothingness, their works are nullity, their statutes are not and nil. And 44, yeah, well, people think they do great things and all that stuff, and this is going to have heavy weight, but it's really of the lightest thing you're gonna find, right? 44:9. The makers of idols all work with no purpose, and the things they treasure can do no good, as they themselves can testify. They neither look nor think, and so they shall be shamed. And if you read it in Aramaic, Hebrew has some differences. The tonic is not in Hebrew. People call it biblical Hebrew, but whatever. There's quite some distinctions with the language. And so Isaiah 44:9-20 makes us think of the human quality of the demiurges. 45:1. Thus saith. God is a verb and noun. Cyrus, his Messiah. Well, who for him is a Messiah? Whose right hand has grasped for him. So this Kurash is acting for Yahweh, treading down those turn their back on divinity before him, ungirdling the loins of kings, opening the doors before him, and letting no gate stay shut. And by the loins, of course, we mean the progeny and that sort of power of desire, just putting a stop to that being a control means. And we need to ever remember when we're using a different language. I occasionally get in arguments online. Jinn is this, Jinn is it's like when you're talking different languages about the same thing, it's like, oh, it's not. It is. It is, particularly when you have a broad word that sort of refers to everything. And 45:19. I did not speak in secret at a sight in a land of darkness. I did not say to the stock of Jacob, seek me out in a wasteland. I, God is a verb and noun, to foretell reliably, to announce what is true. Now, sensory deprivation and all that is all well and good, but let's be clear what our actual obligations are. And risking our lives on Vision Quest and stuff like this may seem like profound and all that, but it's not what we're called to do. 49:4. I thought I labored in vain. I've spent my strength for empty breath, but my case rested with God as a verb and noun. My recompense was in the hands of the power that goes out. Now, Al-He in Aramaic doesn't exactly mean my God, because it's everyone's, right? It's the power that goes out. And 59:4. No one sues justly or pleads honestly. They rely on emptiness and speak falsehood, conceiving wrong and beginning evil. So we talk about different types of emptiness here. It's not just physical, and sometimes the references are symbolic, regardless of what type it seems to be. 43:23. And of course, the context of the words in the wider verses can be used, but I'm not saying that I'm believing everything that's claimed about their context or something by including a particular verse. Because you burned incense and sinned against God as a verb and noun and did not obey God as a verb and noun, and because you didn't follow its teachings, its laws, its exhortations, therefore the disasters have fallen you, as is still the case. So it's not just what you commit, it's what you omit. And Matthew 7:23. And then I will confess to them, never knew I you. Depart ye from me who work lawlessness. Now, before that, in verse 21, you realize that just calling somebody, oh, spiritual master, hey, that just claiming faith, that doesn't cut it. You have to actually live that life, right? And you have to be trying to do it all, right? And it's not the spiritual master, it's of divinity that is, you know, in the wider heavens, right? And if Jesus is Lucifer, as the Christ Mass will indicate, the Lucifer of Lucifer's first time, obviously, then, he's an indicator, just like the word Messiah and Christ and Emmanuel, they're all indicative of a secondary authority figure. Matthew 9:33. And having been cast out, the demon spake. The dumb and wondered the crowd, saying, never was it like seen in all of Israel. Okay, so the person who had been silenced was no longer silenced. Now, don't, it's usually being overwhelmed in one way or another. So don't let people say, oh, the person has autism and they have trouble speaking in public and after being exposed to loud sounds and all that. Maybe they like the loud until they realize, wait a second, they function so much better without it, and then they get used to, dealing with that. But whatever the case, there could be trouble speaking and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that a demon has taken over them. People be beaten to death and all sorts of stuff as part of exorcisms. Never force an exorcism, make it consensual if you're going to do that sort of stuff, regardless of what spiritual side you're going to take. 21:16, and said to him, hearest thou what these say? Jesus says to them, yes, never did ye read, out of the mouth of the babes and the sucklings, thou hast perfected praise. The unlearned, that's a very important position to find yourself in. The unlearned, what comes naturally. 21:42 says to them, Jesus, Isu is a very interesting term, right? Because it's like, oh, thou, and it's like a second person form of that, which there's not too many second person forms. So it's like a formula rather than a real name. Did you never read in the scriptures, the stone which are rejected by those who build, this has become the head of the corner, so the gap has been filled. From the Lord was this, and wonderful in our eyes. While the rock in the corner relates to Abraham's building, and they put a rock in a corner. And this wider, it talks about the taking away from the Israelites and given to the Ishmaelites the gift of prophecy. So how can I not include Quranic references if I'm going to include biblical references like this, right? Because who else was the Ishmaelite prophet that was bringing it back, right? 26:33, and answering Peter said to him, it even all will be offended in thee, I never will be offended. Said to him, Jesus, I say to thee, that during this night before the rooster crows thrice, thou wilt deny me. Well, I guess the rooster shows up, right? And I like to do these rituals at night, because that was the traditional time for my people to do these rituals at night. And in terms of darkness, you can think of every time of year. In terms of the darkness of Lughnasadh, you have darkness gets a clear foothold. And then you have the darker half of the year starts. Then the darker quarter of the year starts. And then it's the darkest time of year. And then it's the time where darkness loses a foothold. And then darkness gives way to being, from that point, less than half. And then darkness is at its almost smallest, but it still has a foothold away from that. And then darkness is at its least. And so we've Luke 15:29. And he answering said to the Father, Lo, the many years I served thee, and never the commandment I transgressed, I and to me never did thou give a kid with my friends that I may make merry. Okay, this is in the prodigal son bit here, right? So he's without, but of course, there's that experience of returning and correcting yourself when you've been wrong. So that's one of the things coming across there. Um, Now, an important combination before I go further is the idea of the colors. So the pituitary red, the thalamus black, the pineal white. And no, there's not a thing where the rich cut out the pineal glands and make adrenochrome. That'd be super inefficient. You got it. The adrenal medulla is what produces it. So adrenaline transforms. They use silver oxide to make the process quicker. Um, they don't have to get it from blood. A lot of conspiracy theories thrown out. But in reference to what are called goddesses, you have a lot of red, black, and white mythology going on. Now, Germany being overrun by Christians during World War II, it was hard to get that across, but the German Christian movement flag, which was adopted by them, took on that symbolism. And okay, John 7:46. Okay, the page isn't. Need to get a extra copy of these in case something happens to these being my Wander the Woods copy. Answered the officers, Never thus spoke a man as this man. And sometimes that's the case. It's like, oh, it never happened. But usually that's not quite the case, right? But sometimes it seems like, that's part of the whole purpose. So Acts 10:14. But Peter said, In no wise, Lord, for never did I eat anything common or unclean. And we do need to distinguish between what's doubtful, what's clearly, and what per se culture has said no, and all that other stuff, right? Acts 11:8. But I said, In no wise, Lord, for anything common or unclean never entered into my mouth. Acts 14:8. And a certain man in Lystra was impotent in the feet and sat lame from the womb of his mother, being who never had walked. Now, maybe he just needed braces or something. Nowadays, that dude had braces. But remember, the power is going to come in and you're going to operate that power that you draw down. vampirism is really right-hand path. People are like, no, it's not right-hand path. It is because the flow is in. Um, Now you can be left-hand path becoming flow out, aspired, all that stuff at the same time. But you know, First Corinthians 13:8. Love never fails, but whether prophecies, they shall be done away, whether the tongues, they shall cease, whether knowledge shall be done away. Now, love also directs where your hate is, and we included the word hate here. We ended the season of love, and well, if you think of prophecies in terms of spiritual gifts, yeah, sometimes there's not the spiritually gifted of the old types. Maybe there's not maybe the things that are prophesied come to pass, but there's a wider purpose. It's just something predictive. Hebrews, Hebrews 10, 1. Is it 10, 1 to 8? Oh, is it 10, 1 and 8, 11? I'll try that one. For a shadow having the law of coming good things, not of itself, the image of things year by year with the same sacrifices which they offer in perpetuity, never is able. Those who approach to be perfect. So it's not just something where you're doing okay, I think it is supposed to be 1 to 8 and 11 here. Um because 11, 8, okay, Abraham goes out and is to receive an inheritance and went not and going. But verse 11 is, in every priest stands day by day ministering, and the same often offering sacrifices which never are able to be taken away. Oh, they're never able to take away the sins. Yeah, well, just the ritual by itself isn't going to cut it. In the right context, it can have its effect. So 10:2, since they would have ceased to be offered on account of in no way having any conscience of the sins that they serve once purged, but in these is a remembrance of sins year by year. Impossible it is for the blood of bulls and the goats to take away sins, because the faith shouldn't be in the object. And if the blood of innocent animals isn't going to do anything, why would murdering a person do that, right? Wherefore, coming into the world, he says, sacrifice and offering thou willest not, but a body thou didst prepare me. Well, it's about living the life, right? Burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin and delight it's not in. And then I said, lo, come. In the roll of the book, it's written of me. Oh, so en kephalagi bibliou gebraptai peri emu tu poihasai. Okay, it should have been I, but sai. O theas ta dalhama su. Okay, emu from N to emu is not in some earlier versions. Above saying sacrifice and offering and the burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin thou willest not nor delightest in, which according to the law are offered. Okay, so again with verse 8 there, aitines kataton naman prosperantai. That's not in the older versions. 9, then he said, Lo, I come to do, O God, thy will. He takes away the first and the second, that may establish. And then we're skipping the vicarious verse because that's not what we're doing here. That would conflict with our self exaltation, as the verse indicates. Zamzamski uv asilov gazasel lu luzugazu zipvam. Just as in beginning the ritual, I would repeat this by part. I would distinguish which of the practices, where the experience occurs, what sort of feeling I have, differences between what occurs with one verse or another. I, of course, would be saying things like, may this become my flesh, may this become my blood. Chocolate is double as going up in price, I hear. So maybe at some point we will not use chocolate, but for now we are using chocolate, and we are using a red beverage. Sort of an equivalent can be used. You can use but that's a standard for my seasonal, and so the symbolism is made totally clear, right? And what's the verse? Tu ta ta esti ta amatas mu. I don't remember. Something like that. But you talk about yourself. The myths are about you. You make it about yourself. And so at this point is the time to share. And if you feel like sharing something that regards my visionary experiences or what I relate as comments to the ritual, particularly if you use the timing, say so. Something may occur on your awareness, your plane. You may have an awareness of something that occurred over here that was off camera. You may have awareness of, just feel open to share all that stuff when it comes about. And because this is the totally English portion, if you decide to ritualize this, you can do that too. If you want to include any part of this for your season, I, I give these seasons colors: red, blue, orange, black, purple, green, yellow, and white. Azamzamski Udasi Luv Gazasel Lu Luzangazu Zipvam. So you may want to have, if you're going to use scented candles or scent offerings, you may want to do something particular regarding the season, what becomes ripe around this time. Something regarding the tarot cards at the seasonal point or the particular calendar day, those cards. You may want to bring up your own stuff. Azamzium ske avaselafkas asel lalazangazu zipvam.